Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Wim Lou. You are listening to the Raptors Reaction Podcast. This is a presentation of ToonieBet Online Sportsbook and Casino. Raptors win tonight 110 to 101 as they return for their first game post All-Star break. Everything from here on out is about winning the game and finding a way for the Raptors to make the playoffs for the first time since, I'm not even going to count the play-in year 2023, since 2022, right? That's the goal. We got to make sure the Raptors get to the top six. They've been in position all year. And what they need to do to secure that goal is to take care of business in games like this. I want to give the Raptors credit because it's not easy leading the entire game against anybody, right? There's always going to be moments where, the other team makes a push, makes a run. Chicago certainly had lots of guards, very difficult team to scout for. Maybe they're not, truthfully, they're not a very good team, but they certainly have a lot of different looks, and you got to account for a lot of different matchups. So there's a lot of things that kind of factor into a matchup like this, but at the same time, Raptors let this thing get way too close, and towards the end, it was genuinely uncomfortable. Raptors led by double digits for most of the game, but never really created like one of those big balloon leads of like 20 points or 25 points. You feel like you need to be up 30 in the modern NBA to even feel relatively comfortable. So, they couldn't generate that type of lead, and I think a lot of that was just based on their offense. You even look at the start of this game, the Raptors forced 11 turnovers out of Chicago. Several of them are live ball turnovers as well. That should be a prime opportunity to build the lead and to hold an advantage over your opponent. Despite forcing 11 turnovers in the first quarter alone, Raptors are only up 2 at the end of the first quarter. So a lot of that was just their offense, clunky in several areas, knocking down threes, missing open looks, not capitalizing enough in transition, having some sloppy turnovers of their own. But you didn't mind that as much because over the bulk of the game, second and third quarter, the Raptors won and they were able to extend the lead. Chicago punched back, but like the Raptors again were in control. The thing is, and that it's not even just against good teams; it's against almost any team. When the Raptors have a modest lead, and I'm defining that by basically 15 points or under, Raps are not good at protecting their advantage. And once again, you saw Chicago in this case take the lead all the way down to 2 points. Anthony Simons knocked down a three. United Center going crazy. Still about 4 minutes left in the game. It's like that's anybody's game at that point, right? And Chicago had cut it down to 2 points. Raptors had a double-digit lead, but similar to the recent games against the Clippers, against the Magic, against the Timberwolves, against the Knicks, it's the same deal. Raptors could be playing well. They could be forcing turnovers. End of the game, when it comes down to can you execute in the half court? Can you not make mistakes, especially self-inflicted ones? Can you knock down and convert open shots and open free throws? Obviously, Raptors just look shaky. And honestly, credit to Brandon Ingram, first and foremost, for being the one who was able to step up and, essentially prove once again why he was an all-star this year. Of course, it took him to be a replacement and everything like that. He was literally the last guy named to the all-star festivities. But, he played like an all-star tonight. 31 points for Brandon Ingram. Dominated the game, certainly was the best player in the game, scoring kind of at will, took it strong to the basket, knocked it down from the three, got to the foul line a couple times as well. Got a lot of shots off, but I think a lot of that was just like missed tip-ins as well. So I'm not even looking at the overall efficiency, which wasn't exactly too bad. I'm not exactly going to complain about anybody really scoring 31 points on 26 shots. That actually is an efficient outing. Did take him 11 to 26, but some of that was like extra tip-in, didn't really go his way. But most importantly, it's not even just about how many points you score, but it's also about the context in which you're scoring. And this is where I feel like for Brandon, he kind of put the team on his back in a huge way, because you saw when the Raptors got the lead down to 2, they called timeout, they settled themselves, and they put the ball in Brandon Ingram's hands. And once they had the ball in Ingram's hands, he operated, drew a double team, pulled the double team further out to make them commit to the double team, which meant that there was an advantage elsewhere. And the advantage ended up being Collin Murray-Boyles in the post against Anthony Simons, which is an obvious mismatch. Simons is a deadly scorer, but he can't guard. And so, Brandon was able to draw the double team, 2 defenders out to the perimeter, throw the pass over the top to CMB. And honestly, CMB with a very balletic sort of finish where he's able to catch it with his back to the basket, and as he's getting fouled, instantly go back up and finish with the sort of spinning finish at the basket. And the reason I think that was such a nice finish for CMB is because if he took his time and was slow and tried to gather and maybe take an extra dribble and put it down instead of going straight up, that could easily be just a foul to stop the play and no free throws, right? And because he's gathering and not yet in the shooting motion, because he caught it in one move and went up with it so quickly, it was a presence of mind of understanding where he was. And also that allowed for that to be an and one versus an opportunity where he's just, basically getting a reset on the floor. And then on the next play, Raptors got to stop. Raptors now up 5 at this point after the and one. They give it to BI, one-on-one in the mid-range, turnaround jumper, knocks it down. Now it's a 7-point game. Now all of a sudden the Raptors feel a lot more comfortable. And from that point onward, basically the Raptors were able to shut the door on Chicago. Their defense was able to sort of take it home the rest of the way. A couple extra free throws from RJ Barrett to really ice it. But ultimately, a fantastic game for Brandon Ingram to save it. I will have to say, though, and I think our standards have risen on the year. I think that it's pretty clear that the Raptors are now a serious team on the season. It's a question of how do they, continue to take care of business against these lowly teams like Chicago, but also looking ahead to sort of how they can beat better teams. I think tonight the Raptors made a few too many mistakes, and you kind of see the same sort of patterns emerging. One of the mistakes, for example, for me, it was just crunch time. The Raptors didn't have a set 5 that they were going to go with, which is fine. I mean, some teams don't go with just the same 5 guys, but there's like a core group of people that you expect on the floor to close games, right? And the Raptors had to take an earlier timeout in the fourth quarter. They took it earlier than they wanted to, but they had to stop a run after Chicago went on a 7-0 run to begin the fourth quarter. And you would have just expected your best 5 guys to be on the floor in these type of moments. You didn't really quite see that, right? Tonight you saw a little bit of Jacoby closing, and to be fair, Jacoby was playing well. He was one of the heroes in this game, so maybe he earned a chance to sort of close a little bit. But you saw a little bit of Jacoby closing, and you saw Jamal Shed closing. RJ wasn't in the game initially, but then RJ came in. It just felt a little muddled more than anything else. And I think one of the plays that really highlighted this for me was there was a play where the play broke down and Jamal, as the point guard, had the ball at the top of the floor and he had to call his own number after getting a screen set for him. There wasn't a pass to slip out of or whatever. So he ultimately had to create one-on-one. And going towards the basket, he got the ball stripped as he was taking a strong on a spin move. And that went out of bounds off his own leg, so it became a turnover going to Toronto's side. I'm sorry, but that should never happen. The ball needs to be in Scottie Barnes or Brandon Ingram's hands. If not those guys, then at least IQ or RJ. I mean, RJ wasn't even on the floor, so it literally could not have been in his hands. But those are the type of plays where it's just like, you cannot be having the ball intentionally in Jamal's hands for that long, because you know what? The defense is going to be able to cut off some of your other actions. Other guys may not have to get open, and that's where the guy with the ball has to make a play against the shot clock. And Jamal is one of the last guys on the team I want doing that. And that's not a slight against Jamal, who I think has done a great job closing out several games with the ball in his hands down the stretch. So I'm not saying that, like, all of a sudden we can't be going with Jamal. But, like, this is a similar thing that happened against the Timberwolves as well. It's happened repeatedly. And I understand that Darko has this level of comfort in him. You know, they like IQ's ability to attack closeouts and play off the ball. You know, Jamal, generally speaking, is a pretty safe ball handler, although he had some, crucial turnovers against the Wolves the other game. It's just, put all that aside, on a fundamental basis, you need to have the best players on your team closing the game. I said this before in the shows before the All-Star break as well, but your crunch time offense, the last 5 minutes, the last 8 minutes of the game, cannot look like the first 40 minutes. First 40 minutes, you're managing the game, right? You're making sure that, you're playing the percentages, but you're not playing all out. Last 8 minutes, the game state changes. There's enough adjustments figured out by both teams. You need to be sure down the stretch. And so, I just didn't quite see that from the Toronto side until they called that last timeout, and then they put Brandon on the ball 2 consecutive possessions. And guess what? Brandon was able to get them 2 unbelievable plays, a mid-range jumper by him, and then an and one to CMB. Do that more often. And I would say typically I would advocate for Scottie to be having the ball as well, in addition to Brandon, because I'm not asking for Brandon to create one-on-one every single time down. He's not a James Harden. He's not a Luka type. Cade Cunningham, like these guys that can, Anthony Edwards, what he did to Toronto recently, like he's not that type of guy, right? Defenses will ultimately overwhelm him, with double teams, with physicality, all that's valid, right? But typically, I want Scottie to do it with him. One thing with Scottie's played great all season, right? He's an all-star. There's even a chance for him to make an all-NBA team this year. He's played that well, particularly on the defensive end. His intensity is great. I thought he played really well over the bulk of the game. Something's starting to drive me nuts with Scottie, man. As a leader of the team, he's got to set the tone in how he takes care of the ball. You see how many times a game now where he's just throwing the ball away, not under much pressure. And I understand, right? The Raptors have, this desire to play fast, rebound, push instead of dribbling, right? Pushing and with the first pass, all that kind of stuff. And Scottie is as unselfish as they come, right? So if you want to argue that as a leader, he's trying to set those, goals and establish those, I understand. Scottie does that 100% of the time out of 100. However, as a ball handler, he has to stop turning the ball away with no pressure on. There was a play even, there's basically once a game he's like overthrowing Grady Dick on the fast break now. Grady Dick basically having to land out of bounds. Grady's confidence is already pretty terrible as it is right now with sort of like the limited minutes, and he's the 10th man and he's not playing great. But the way he's hanging his head after Scottie's throwing him these passes that have no chances of going in, you would think it was like Drake May facing a blitz in the Super Bowl against the Seahawks, right? And he's just got to get rid of the ball. No, man, it's under no pressure, and he's just throwing it out of bounds. And this is a small thing to nitpick because I've already said so many great things about Scott. But as a leader, he has to value the ball, and he has to protect it. Even late in the game, there was a play where they try to run a set play, and Brandon did have a post-up inside position on a smaller guy. It's a bit of a crowd in the paint, but he did have inside position. However, as the point guard, either Scottie has to make that pass on the money, right where it's supposed to be, where only Brandon can catch it and then Brandon can make a move going to the basket, or he has to not make that pass. Because he threw another pass, live turnover in the fourth quarter that the Bulls immediately picked off, went the other way. Raptors' floor balance was compromised, and all of a sudden they're scoring the other way, and you're losing momentum, and it's on the road and the pressure. The execution has to be so much stronger from Scottie, which I think is really just a focus thing because he doesn't really have typically this bad turnover issue, but especially the live ball turnovers off passes has just been really off recently, and today he had 6 turnovers. But otherwise, don't play through like these ancillary guys. Like, go through your big guns. And I know for Darko, it's like it's got to be hard, right? It's got to be like, well, we have these principles. We share the ball. We come down the floor. We put it in the post. Then we cut off the ball. We screen off the ball. We get it back. Like there's a lot of excess. And again, the last 8 minutes offense cannot look like the first 40 minutes. That's unrealistic. Almost no team's able to do that. Maybe the Warriors back in the day, maybe that's sort of the lofty standards they set for themselves. Hey, guess what? Raptors aren't that type of team, man. They got to figure out how to lock down. And of course, today they did lock down, which is good. A lot of that is because they did an amazing job with the defensive end. I mean, holding Chicago to 101 points. I know it was just Chicago, but it was really impressive. The Raptors defensively forced 20 turnovers out of Chicago. There were so many. I mean, they forced every type of turnover, right? We're talking about Jamal Shed forcing an 8-second against Collin Sexton, making them flip 2 times before poking the ball free and essentially, earning the turnover. We're talking about Jakob Poeltl diving on the floor all over the place, stealing the ball one-on-one, stealing the ball with the help defense, rotating over, pressuring guys along the sideline. We're talking about Scottie Barnes making the effort, making the help side rotation, blocks at the basket. He had a sensational block in the fourth quarter as well in that fashion. We're talking about Collin Murray-Boyles, who, his ball pressure as, playing as a 5. I mean, typically, okay, teams pressure like 1 through 4, especially good defenses put pressure 1 through 4, but even the really good defenses in the league aren't pressuring with their 5-man. But CMB, obviously being an undersized guy, and especially because he has such quick feet, he's pressuring as a 5. And so even when their bigs try to like have the ball, which usually is like an outlet, like a pressure valve, Okay. Sorry guys, I think I'm gonna bounce in and out a little bit. Obviously I'm not yet home yet, so hopefully we're good. Are we back, guys? We're back. Okay. Um, so I think for the team, yeah, like they got to figure out obviously how they execute crunch time offensively, but I think for the team, again, like I said, defensively was really great. The pressure, especially Collin being able to attack these five men, like there's basically nobody who can like essentially breathe out there, which I think is actually like maybe the most taxing thing about playing the Raptors is like literally you can't run it through anybody. Every single person is getting pressed. Like, and so you're seeing Chicago throw the ball away. You've seen them end the shot clock violations, good help rotations as well. To be honest, I felt like Chicago were even a bit lucky to score 101 points, and I know that's like not a lot, but like they actually had some pretty tough shot making. Guys like Tre Jones handled it really well, and he had like a huge game for them off the bench. He was so steady for them. Anthony Simons, even though he was 7 of 18, like those 7 were like some of the hardest 7 shots that he made. Like it was just like really like impressive all the way around in terms of just how much the Raptors like ate into what Chicago wanted to do offensively. And again, like they set the tone right away. I mean, the start of the game, Raptors I think were up like 10-2, and they turned the Chicago Bulls over 11 times in the first quarter. Basically, like at least 3 times in the last first 5 plays. Like, you know, and it was everybody. Like I think it was impressed the fact that like RJ, IQ, Brandon, these guys that you don't typically think of as defenders were giving such great effort and hustle out there. And I think that that's just them again like resetting and restating like their intentions on the season. I think in particular though, like when the ball gets pressure like that, the guy that stands out the most to me every single time is Jakob Poeltl. I don't know if people were around and watched something like Summer League, right? But I remember being there in Summer League last summer, and obviously the Raptors had a pretty steady contingent out there. I mean, even just the guys in the game today, right? Jamal Shed, Jakob Poeltl, Collin Murray-Boyles, those guys were all in Summer League. And one of the guys that was the biggest takeaway in terms of just what impressed me was just seeing Jakob Poeltl. Yes, Walter's offensive game could still use more growth. He could still get a little bit stronger. You know, he's still a very young player, right? I mean, he would be right now a junior in college. But his next level of defensive pressure is unbelievable. Like, it's genuinely game changing. Like, he's just straight up, like, he's just able to sort of anticipate, move his feet, keep his chest in front. He's so quick and he's so dogged. And then he's just able to time it just perfectly right, sort of when to go for the reach. He's also quite good at sort of like the blind doubles where the Raptors like to sort of like, you know, basically, especially if a guy turns his back to the play at the top of the floor, like there's a lot of dribble handoff action in the NBA nowadays. Whenever someone does that and there's basically a blind side of like they're looking in one direction, they can't see what's coming from behind them. That's where Jacoby is so good at coming in and stealing the ball. And I think that's where, you know, for the team, like they need that sort of defensive intensity almost every single night to be able to sort of like, you know, capture results. Not just against the Chicago Bulls, who are obviously still new and, you know, they made a lot of trades, so a lot of guys don't know how to play off of each other just yet. But I think just across the board, because this is like the best thing the Raptors do. And I really like Darko essentially, you know, like not picking Jacoby over Grady, because I think that there still might be time. But if you think about the start of the season, and I go back from Summer League, which was very impressive, it was like, okay, that was the blueprint for what the Raptors wanted to do. They carried that over, obviously, to the season, which is great. But then I was looking at training camp, which was in Calgary, and even going to the practices, you were like, wait, hold on, Jacoby's like with the third unit. Like, why, right? Like, you still had Ochai and Grady ahead of him, and obviously RJ is going to play ahead of him. That's fine. RJ is a better player, but like, why was he third in the pecking order, right? And coming into the season, you still had Ochai, Grady getting consistent minutes, and then Jacoby was just kind of over there, like floating as like an 11th guy or whatever. And obviously the Raptors have had a few too many shooting guards, and to some extent, Bobby addressed that by flipping Ochai to get a big in for Trayce Jackson-Davis. You know, fairly simple move. Anyone could have seen that coming. I literally predicted that, you know, coming into the season that Ochai was going to get moved, right? But there still had to be a decision of like, who are we going to ride with, Grady or Jakobi? I was always more on the Jakobi side, and for the reasons of I've seen a higher level out of him on the defensive end than I have seen a higher level out of Grady on the offensive end. And ideally, both guys can play together. Both guys can operate, and Jakobi can play the 3-and-D, especially with the defense. And Grady can come in and be a flamethrower, shooting the ball, finishing in transition. Some games it works out like that, which is great. But I like that Darko prioritized Jakobi today. Grady, I feel bad for him, right? He basically only got in for 2 shifts. Started the second quarter, started the fourth quarter. As low leverage as possible. Plays 9 minutes, gets some rebounds, misses some threes. Gets some long passes overcooked from Scottie. Like, didn't really play a factor in this game, right? Did what he could defensively. It wasn't even that bad. But you compare that versus what Jakobi was doing. Like, Jakobi closing the game was really impressive. And honestly, he may have had a chance to fully close out the game, keeping RJ on the bench if it wasn't for him missing an open corner 3 and then going in for a missed tip back. But he was doing great. And I think his energy and his effort defensively just, for a young guy, really set the tone. In a weird way, I was watching this game too, and I'm like, man, it's a little redundant to have both Jakobi and Jamal for this role because, early in the season, Jamal was kind of doing, great work on the defensive end, again, setting the tone. I mean, Jamal's a great defender on its own right, especially pressuring the ball. But Jamal was doing more offensively, clearly. He was setting the floor. He was getting guys open, getting Mamu into open shots, getting CMB, looks like Jamal was just doing great at the start of the season. Of late, Jamal has really struggled, and it's starting to sort of like exacerbate some of the Raptors' issues. Like, for example, again, crunch time, everything is really under the microscope. But there was the play where Jamal had to go one-on-one at an end of a shot clock. Obviously not an ideal situation, but if he's the point guard for you, a lot of point guards got to go one-on-one at the end of a shot clock. I don't know what to tell you, right? That's like part of the job of a point guard. Part of the reason why point guards usually shoot such a poor percentage as compared to other positions. And then the other play where I think Brandon had the ball and he had to give it up because there's 2 guys. He threw a cross court to Jamal wide open in the corner, and Jamal just shanked it really badly. It's just like, I think Jamal's effectiveness is starting to come down. That was kind of not really up for debate. He's kind of had a really quiet 3 weeks. The Clippers game was awesome right before the road trip. He had a great game in that one. But since then, I haven't really felt the same sort of presence from Jamal. And I think that there is a little... You're just so deficient offensively between Jamal, Jakobi, and Grady. Sometimes the 3 of them play together. Like, it just really leads to some real issues for the team. But, of course, that's where it's good to have RJ and IQ. The only thing with RJ and IQ is... And today they had decent games. Both of them had decent games. Like, wouldn't say they're exceptional, but RJ tonight had 13 points, got to the foul line 8 times, made 6 of those. Only shot 3 of 10, but again, 13 points on 10 shots in 24 minutes, not terrible. Had a couple of nice plays out of the pick and roll as well. I think IQ, despite not being able to knock down threes, and I think it's especially, I don't know, some of the transition threes, I understand that the Raptors want him to be hunting threes, and today only took 4 threes, so that's actually well below his season average, and I think the Raptors have been on record at a certain time saying they want him to take 10 threes, so that's going to have to come with levels of aggression that sometimes may feel forced, but the missed threes in transition for him are just almost always lead to like long plays going the other way. They're like absolute momentum killers. It just doesn't feel right. It feels like doubling down when you have 16 or something. Like you maybe you should just ride it out. Maybe you just make the extra pass, try to get it going towards the basket. Maybe you get it back like he did with the give and go with Scottie, and he gets a floater. Like that transition pull-up 3 is such a big home run swing, and it hasn't really. I don't know. Today it just kind of bothered me. It was basically just one shot in particular. But like those guys were solid. The thing is, like, you still need a little bit of extra scoring around that because Brandon can't just be the only focal point. Your center position is kind of giving you no scoring. CMB is basically giving you layups and runouts, which is good, but is not practical scoring, especially in the half court setting. Maybe occasionally you got that play late in the game, which was awesome, but that's clearly not a factor over the course of the game. And then I think, and my last thing really before I want to take a quick break, because again, a lot of good things happen in this one. I don't want to come across as negative. I just think that, like, especially now going forward, like this team is really all about winning the rest of the season. I really want to point out like where things can be improved. Okay, so Jakob Poeltl came off the bench tonight, right? And Jakob Poeltl, basically as a Raptor, in his second shift, I mean, the first shift as a Raptor, he did come off the bench. But basically his entire time with the Spurs and his entire time with the Raptors, he's been a starter. I think on this team, when healthy, he's a starter. The thing is, very notable that he came off the bench tonight. I I think part of that was the matchups. Chicago plays so small, plays so fast. It does make sense to roll with a smaller matchup, right? I think that's tactically the right choice. Also, you have the fact that Jakob is clearly still working his way back into the lineup, and so it's easier to manage a person's minutes when they're coming off the bench. Having said all that, though, man, it bums me out. I really hope Jakob can get there, because the player we saw on the floor tonight doesn't really have positive value, and it's pretty far from it. I don't even mean the contract value, because we're kind of beyond that point, but I'm just talking about, like, can he contribute? The game was happening around Jakob, but it never happened with Jakob. And I mean that on the defensive end and on the offensive end. If anything, the Raptors were more... You notice Jakob much more on defense because Chicago was targeting him on switches nonstop. Now, to his credit, he got a couple switches and he was able to keep a couple guys in front. And that's good, right? That's actually pretty good, especially considering a center containing any guard in the NBA is already pretty good. But there were also moments like in the fourth quarter, Jakob's out there and Gershon Yabusele takes him off the dribble. And Darko instantly, reaches for his bench and puts in Sandro Mamukelashvili, who isn't even a great defender, by the way. Sandro is also not a good defender. But you're watching Jakob and he just does not look like himself. 16 minutes tonight, not only, again, like, I just mean like first off, he had 0 rebounds. Second of all, like, guys are just getting the ball and just running away from him. Playing so fast in transition. Part of that is the matchup. Again, Chicago and Toronto are two of the faster teams that really have a strong intention to play fast. But like, it's might as well he might as well not have played. Like, it was almost like a cardio session. Like if you go to some bigger runs and if you're the worst guy there and you're the least guy in shape, like you just notice everything happening around you. Like, it's still a game, and maybe you still set a screen here, or maybe you got to stop here or whatever, but. And he had a high-low feed to Mamu for a cut. It was like, okay, cool, solid. Like, nah, man, like, it just doesn't feel like Jakob's actually there. And that's where I think for me it's just like, I just wonder how long he's going to take and if he can get there this season. We've obviously had lots of in and out with Jakob on the season. It's sort of been a lot of false starts with his health. He's basically dealt with the back issue all season. He hasn't really looked like himself outside of maybe like a 3-week stretch when the Raptors were having their best basketball. He's very important. He's very good when healthy. I don't think that these are things in debate, and they shouldn't really be forgotten just because he's injured. But I guess what I'm trying to say is even after a long break, he still is very much limited and very much not Jakob. And I don't know what else to say. I mean, I guess it just is what it is. I guess we're just kind of at the mercy of this thing. We did get a backup in Trayce Jackson-Davis, if needed. Today he didn't play any time. But I guess my hope is I see Jakob again, because just because I see 60 minutes of Jakob doing cardio does not mean remotely that Jakob's back or that he's close to back. If anything, it makes me a little more concerned. So we're going to take a quick break. Again, apologies for some of the tech issues. We're going to just have to roll with it a little bit. Okay, if I'm in 360p, I'm in 360p. It is what it is. So we're going to take a quick break, show you one of our beloved messages from our beloved sponsors. And when we come back, we'll take some of your questions.
This segment is brought to you by Table Fare and Social. Get your pregame bites and after-work drinks at Table.
It's a great location, right across the street from the arena and just steps away from Union Station and the Metrolinx bus terminal.
Will, I love my wedge salad, but there's plenty of options at Table. What should we have next?
Oh, we could have salad for days, my friend.
Oh, you're talking about salad days? I love salad days, man. They got a different salad for every day of the week. You can never get tired of the options there.
Oh yeah, I heard about this place. This was your go-to lunch spot forever. You always said the lettuce was so crispy.
Man, it's so crispy and fresh, and now this can be your go-to meal before Raptors games.
I like that. Grab a pregame salad at Table Fare and Social right across from the arena. All right. Before we go take your questions, if you missed the news, by the way, ToonieBet has joined the Hello and Welcome team, and we're very, very happy to bring them along, and we're really excited to sort of launch a couple of different segments. You'll hear them soon, but this segment is presented by ToonieBet Online Sportsbook and Casino. Thousands of slot games and live casino at your fingertips, and a sportsbook made for Ontario. Get your game on with ToonieBet. So actually, in between this game between the Raptors and the Bulls, I was also watching the Charlotte Hornets and the Houston Rockets. Houston managed to actually come away with the win, made a couple plays. Obviously, KD potentially under the most heat out of any player at the moment. But I think Charlotte has really taken the lead by storm. This is like literally they just wrapped up their first 9-game win streak of the 2020s, which is not 2020, so it's the 2000s. Sorry, of this entire millennia, which is kind of unbelievable because obviously every other team in the NBA has achieved that. Even teams that are defunct and no longer in the league. But of course, the Charlotte franchise, both the Bobcats and the Hornets, have yet to sort of achieve that until very recently. That was derailed by their brawl, and so certain guys I think are still serving suspensions from that. From Charlotte's side, certainly guys from Detroit are going to be out for a while. Looking at you, Isaiah Stewart, jumping off the bench like a WWE character. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting. So tomorrow the Hornets actually face the Cavs. It'll be a back-to-back for both teams. The Cavs took care of business tonight. The Hornets lost tonight. I think that's going to be a really interesting matchup. The Hornets are plus 160 to beat the Cavs. I think I'll ride with the Hornets. Mainly because I think for the Hornets, like their physicality and their ability to switch, I think we've all seen the Cavs. I mean, it's a new look Cavs. I know they got James Harden. They got getting healthier. They're playing a lot better recently too. Like I'm not, this is not my usual Cavs slander corner, but I do think that one consistent theme with Cleveland is that they struggle to handle physicality. So we have seen the Hornets a lot. We know how physical they can be. I'm going to keep my eye on that game, and I'll be very interested to see how that one goes. So make sure you hit up ToonieBet.com for all your sports betting needs. ToonieBet is licensed and regulated by the AGCO and iGaming Ontario. 18 plus, Ontario only. Please play responsibly. Okay, let's take some of your questions in our chat here. Again, I appreciate you guys for riding through with all the tech. Karem, what do we got for questions, man? Hit me with some questions. I think the less I touch my laptop, the better, maybe. So, first question from Tala, Will broadcasting from California. Yeah, I always try to sneak in a little bit of time with family, and I'm currently in Palo Alto, where my extended family live, and yeah, it's just a short flight up from LA. I'll be back, I think, on Saturday. Raptors play again on Sunday, so I'll be back for the Sunday game, just in the usual setup, but yeah, you got to sneak a little family time when you can, especially during the season. So it's an all-star break for everybody, baby. So also the weather's a lot better here. I'm not gonna lie. Comment here, yeah, the jacket is fire. Yeah, I'm just gonna flex the jacket a little bit. I'm gonna take off the score. Yeah, so this is the all-star jacket from this year's All-Star Game 2026. Yeah, truly, I'm not one of those people that end up buying like merch very often, especially from these like events, that we end up going to, Summer League, All-Star, whatever. Like last year, I didn't even think about getting the All-Star gear from the San Francisco game, but yeah, this year, this was such a sick jacket. I mean, I think I've seen tons of photos of like Giannis and especially KD looking at his phone. He's wearing this jacket, and even seeing in person on Luka, on Jokic, on Ant, on Scottie and Brandon, it's just a sick jacket. So I got the whole fit. Of course, knowing the way I operate, I had to wait for the 50% off sale. So I went with the 50% off sale the morning after All-Star Weekend. So we got a good deal. The funny thing is, me and Alex both got the entire set, jacket and matching pants. So we're gonna have to coordinate on when we wear those items, because I'm not trying to roll around looking like the Harlem Globetrotters. But yes, it is the fire jacket, and I'm very proud to add this to the collection. So what else we got? As I turn the score bug back on. Okay, Donkey asks, question, what do you think the Raptors do with the starting center spot moving forward? Always CMB, question mark. Yak only against bigger / traditional centers. CMB until Yak gets back in the rhythm. I suspect that the Raptors will still roll with Jakob as the starting center, especially as he gets healthier and healthier. Right now, I think they're clearly managing a player that either needs reps to come back to full strength, or may not reach there, but you need to sort of at least see what it looks like. Um, so it's a bit experimental. It's also a bit sort of like, you're bringing him along. Um, I do think though that like there are some real distinct advantages when the Raptors have played small ball, and they played a ton of small ball. Part of that's by design with Bobby not really stocking the team with too many centers, and part of that is also because of the injuries to Jakob. But they've actually played really well small ball wise. I've noted this many times on the show. Scottie, Mamu, CMB, they play great against basically matchups like this. Like Chicago don't have a true center in there. You're not exactly worrying about Joel Embiid or Jokic or even DeAndre Ayton has hurt the Raptors this year. Like, you're not worrying about those type of players. These guys have done a great job. So I think there are some real advantages. Your floor spacing is better. You're able to play faster. I think, truthfully, if you got into a platoon situation where Yak takes on the bigger centers in the slower paced games and CMB takes on the smaller centers, I wouldn't mind that. Even saw today a little bit of massaging from Darko, because obviously Yak came off the bench, both starting the first half and the second half. But Jakob subbed in super early. Like, Jakob subbed in like regular bench guy, like 6 minutes, 5 minutes left in the first quarter. But in the third quarter, he came in like 2 minutes into the frame, and part of that I think is just because of the fact that I think they like the matchup a little bit better with Jakob. So they can platoon. We've seen that in the past, notably when Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka became teammates in Toronto. Nick opted to sort of like, they're like, oh, okay, against a smaller center we play Serge, against a bigger center we play Mark, and there were some brief moments there. They went like that for about a month, and then eventually bit the bullet and said like, yo, we're going to start Mark. I think as much as that was quote unquote tactical, I think the other part was also just that was sort of managing ego in a way, because Serge was the longer term guy. And, especially considering the fact that they had just traded away JV, I think Serge probably expected to have that spot full time. And for Mark to come in, I think it was a bit of a hit emotionally for Serge to be like, okay, now I'm a bench player, right? Clearly he got over that and contributed in a huge way. And so, he should only be remembered as a champion and as a great player, both on the bench and starting for the Raptors. We all love Serge here, but that, it's not always just like managing the matchup. It's also sometimes managing even ego in that situation. There's definitely a bit of ego, obviously, when the Raptors brought in Mark. And so good for Mark to even play along. He's like, all right, cool. Like, I was an all-star. I was the man in Memphis. I was a defensive player of the year. But if you want me to come off the bench, I'll come off the bench, And eventually, obviously, they got the matchups right. I think for Toronto, if Jakob doesn't come back to full strength, I would rather roll with CMB. And if Jakob does come back to full strength, I will just roll with Jakob. To be honest, platoons, as much as they work great in baseball, they tend to be very awkward compromises in basketball. It's kind of my answer to all of it. So there you go. Another question here. Question, is Darko still experimenting? Are these wonky rotations something we'll see in the playoffs? Yeah, I don't think he's still experimenting. I think he's trying to manage the situation. So I think part of it is the experimentation is largely, okay, what does Jakob's health look like? What does RJ's health look like? Because you saw RJ also cut his minutes down to about like 24, basically since he's come back from his knee issue and his ankle issue. Jakob, you just straight up don't know. I think you kind of have to just keep throwing him out there, see how his back feels, maybe, getting along steadily. There's those aspects. Clearly he's not himself. I think the more experimental thing that it feels like is how he's managing this guard rotation. So the Raptors suddenly have 4 guards that they're playing every single night. And if you want to throw Grady in there as another guard, that's basically 5 guards. IQ, RJ are the combination to start, and that shouldn't really be challenged. And then Jacoby and Jamal come off the bench. I think there's a bit of mix and matching going on in the sense of like, okay, sometimes Jamal and IQ will play together. That's been one of their, favorite combinations on the season, the 2-point guard lineup. We've seen some Jacoby out there with IQ. We've seen RJ out there with Jacoby. Like, there's a couple of different looks that they're kind of going through, but ultimately 4 guys is kind of a lot to manage in a guard rotation. What's awkward about it is that both tandems, so IQ and RJ and Jamal and Jacoby, they both kind of have overlapping skill sets. whereas you maybe want to have like one with the other. You know what I mean? So IQ and RJ are both offense guys, and they score in different ways, but they certainly mostly bring value on the offensive end. And then Jacoby and Jamal are both defensive guys, and they mostly bring you defensive value. Sometimes they bring you offensive value, like today, Jacoby knocking down some threes and cutting along the baseline. That was good, but like ultimately speaking, those guys are in their game for defense. If you could have one defender, one attacking player in your backcourt at all times, that feels like a better matchup and a better mix. So I think that's actually where part of it is awkward. And I think the most awkward it gets is during crunch time when you see the Raptors like have to decide like which guard are we going to go with? Is it going to be RJ? Is it going to be, Jacoby? Is it going to be Jamal? I mean, IQ's typically closing games anyway, but we've even seen games where IQ hasn't closed. That's where it gets real awkward because it's pretty certain that like Scottie and Brandon are going to be in closing every game. But even past that, the center position is a little bit, up in the air, especially considering Jakob's health. And then the guard spot, it's been inconsistent recently. So. Next question from Jeff. Sandro is a decent perimeter defender. His interior defense is non-existent. Yeah, I think this is a comment on like earlier when I was talking about sort of Jakob getting yanked early in the fourth quarter after Yabusele hurt him and took him off the dribble and scored to the basket. I think he maybe had to take the foul or something, but yeah, I think with Mamu, his perimeter defense is okay. Like it's not outright bad, especially for a center. It's not bad, but I think in particular, there just isn't any effect when he's protecting the basket. Occasionally he'll like block a shot, but he's got to block a shot like before a guy gets to the level of the rim because he's not really protecting much above the square, or any really above the square. You would ideally, I don't know. I think we know exactly what Sandro is, right? And I think that like what's been really promising this season is he's been giving you that on a consistent basis, and then sometimes he's been delivering above that, which is great. Most of the value he brings is on the offensive end, and he's been, quite frankly, like an awesome offensive big, driving the ball, stretching the ball, playing fast, even handling, playmaking a little bit. I do like the idea of playing a little bit of Mamu at the 4 because we haven't really seen that at all this season. Maybe you want to say he's nominally the 4 and Scottie's the 5 when those two play together, but realistically, Sandro's played at 5 pretty much all year. There's some real advantages for a skilled big who can stretch and shoot as a 5. Like, you're able to play against slower guys. You're able to play against who are shot blockers. They're always sagged down in the paint, protecting help. And so, like, Mamu's gotten to play, like, it's amplified even more of his offensive strengths. But I think on the defensive end, like, that's where he needs help. And so, some of Jakob and Mamu together would have been great. We didn't really get to see much of it because, again, Jakob's not played for most of the season. But in theory, that could really work out nicely. And you can kind of protect Mamu. And Mamu is, unlike a lot of stretch 5s, like he's skilled enough to even play 4, which is not typically the case. Like, that's why Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis couldn't work out together in Indiana, for example, back in the day. Turner is skilled for a stretch 5, but as a 4, he's almost below average in terms of his abilities. So I think Mamu actually has a level of dexterity, ball handling, attacking the closeouts, comfort play on the perimeter that him and Jakob play together, but they have no idea how to play together right now because they haven't done it all year. So, but it's an interesting look in theory. It's an interesting look in theory for sure. Another question here. Jamie asks, what are we thinking for CMB nickname as Simba? Since this guy loves big cats on his Insta. Simba. Does he love big cats on his? I know his profile is like a big cat. I don't exactly know why in particular. But Simba. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Someone's got to like pick him up then and like present him to the world. Who's going to be his Rafiki in this situation? But yeah, I mean CMB, I think people keep trying to nicknames for him. I kind of like the way CMB just rolls off the tongue, to be honest. CMB could just be CMB, I feel like, actually. I think we were trying out a couple different ones. I know S has been popularizing Magneto. I was a little partial to RCMB just because he's been locked up, but I guess this is a bad time for celebrating law enforcement. So, like, it is what it is, right? But I think CMB also just works. It kind of flows quite nicely. Streets are saying Garrett Temple is Rafiki. That's very funny to me. I suppose, yeah. I guess his version of doing the conga line is his version of Rafiki lining up all the young guys. But yeah, CM Beast. CM Beast. Yeah, okay. CM Beast is okay too. I think the big thing is we just got to pitch. We got to find one collectively as a group, and then we got to pitch it next year to Matt in our annual training camp episode. And if we can get him to actually like a call, I think we can actually get him to use it on air. I think we've successfully got RJ Kidding Me as one of the signature calls for RJ. And we did get a one-time use of Mamu. There goes that man, which I was personally very happy with because I definitely missed Mark Jackson a lot, to be honest. I don't know why, but I feel like I didn't enjoy him as much, didn't appreciate him as much in the moment, but I actually quite like his calls, and I miss him a lot on ABC. So, next question. We got credit to CMB for continuing to play through the injury and making an impact. Yo, absolutely, man. I think that's actually one of the things that makes me respect his character so much because, I just saw CMB out in LA for All-Star Weekend, and watching him in the Rising Stars Challenge only play 1 minute for his team over the course of like 2 games as well. That didn't look great, right? The fact that he only played 1 minute, and clearly he just wasn't fully right. The thumb, he was in a wrap and everything like that. A couple things actually, even just beyond this. So for the All-Star game, they had a big holding area, which they had 8 different podiums, and that's where they would bring in players and they would sit in and they would have 50 reporters swarming them and ask some bullshit questions. I mean, if you've seen the Collin Murray-Boyles scrum, you know exactly what I mean. So that's a typical thing. And then around that, just outside that area, there was another holding area that was sort of set up for more one-on-one interviews for the bigger outlets. And then beside that, there was a gym workout area. It was just kind of out in the open, kind of slightly roped off. I'm not going to lie to you, I did not see one all-star or three-point contestant or rising star workout all weekend, and I was spending my entire days just in the back area floating between those 2 holding areas. The one guy I saw actually working out was Collin Murray-Boyles. The Raptors even brought in their strength coach, Johnny Lee, to oversee the workouts. The Raptors actually had tons of personnel here. It felt like basically a regular traveling party for the team. I think the Raptors typically travel with 50-ish personnel. Raptors must have had 30 people here, maybe 25. I'm seeing a ton of Raptors here. But in any case, CMB was one of the only guys I've seen actually use that workout area. And he was getting a lift in between doing media and then doing practice of the game. And you might think, okay, well, lift before practice, that's normal. No, man, practice is not even practice. This is basically just guys warm up and take some basic shots and joke around with T-Mag, Mello, and Vince Carter. CMB is the only guy still getting the lift in, so salute to CMB. But yeah, in tonight's game, the play late where the ball, I think, was slid inside to CMB, and he had a chance to go up strong. He went up super strong, grabbed it with 2 hands, tried to dunk the hell out of the ball, and he got fouled, I think, by Patrick Williams rotating late at the basket, giving the foul and preventing the shot. I mean, that's exactly what you should do, right? I mean, good job by Patrick Williams by saying no layups, but immediately rakes Collin across his left hand that's been bandaged up. The camera pans to CMB and he's grimacing in pain. He's holding his thumb and it's just so painful for him. But then he goes to the line and he swishes 2 free throws. That is, I mean, first off, even just the fact that he didn't shy away from it, the fact that he went up strong, the fact that he went up so strong that he banged his thumb against the rim as he's getting slapped, and then on top of all that, with it, you can imagine that thing's on fire. He still goes to switch the 2 free throws. Huge stuff, man. He's just absolutely massive. And it's just been, in terms of his sacrifice for the team, his toughness, it's exactly what I want from my big. Yo, Krem, what we got? All right, thoughts on an all-defensive lineup of Shed, Walter, Ingram, CMB, and Scottie. I don't mind. I think that it's probably not enough offense, considering Ingram is maybe the only guy that you're respecting from 3 in that entire foursome. But I think certainly on a defensive end is good. I mean, the fact that Ingram is even in a defensive lineup, I think is pretty notable. I think he's really stepped up on that front. I'd say he's probably around average. He's more disruptive. He's less physical. He's not keeping guys in front as much. But generally speaking, Brandon's actually been much better defensively with the Raptors than he had been previously with the Pelicans or the Lakers. And I think that's just him buying into the scheme. I think we actually talked to Brandon about it recently, and his thing was look, I saw the Raptors already had a thing going on here, or they had a defensive reputation. I didn't want to be the guy to be the, just to stick out and not follow the game plan. And I just think that, like, number one, that's like, it requires a level like humbling for an all-star to even play defense, because how many all-stars in the league don't play defense, right? You can literally go through them. I mean, we had one in DeMar, for example, here in Toronto, right? It's pretty common for all-stars to say, like, yo, I do all the scoring, I do all this setting guys up, you guys do the defense, I'll just wait over here. Luka, Harden, again, you can go through a whole list of them, right? So it takes a little bit of humbling for a guy to even just try play defense as an all-star. But then I think on the other end too, it's just like, I think it shows like a willingness for Brandon to buy into the team. That's why it's been such a good fit. So it will be interesting. Walter and Shed together is interesting. I do feel like the only thing is neither guy is like a shutdown guy, but I suppose they are certainly better defensively than an IQ and RJ in those positions. So it's not bad. I'm pretty sure we've seen this lineup many times over the course of the season too. These have been 5 of the healthiest guys on the team too. So let's take some more questions. This pod has gone remote. Yeah, I mean, we did a couple obviously from All-Star Weekend, and this is an extension of that. But yeah, I mean, I'll be back for the next one. We don't have that many other road trips. I think we're actually making sure that we have enough in the budget to make sure we can get to playoffs, which previous years we knew the Raps weren't going to be in the playoffs. So let's go to LA in November, and let's go to Atlanta in January type of thing. Like, I think this year, knowing that the Raptors are going to be in the playoffs, if everything goes right, we gotta make sure we're there for that. So it always leads to more production concerns, though. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. It's not. There's a lot to figure out when we're sort of like not just in our usual setup. But again, like, whatever. That's a minor price to pay for trying to bring the best coverage possible. So. CHM says, why is IQ constantly trying to make cute flip shots? Does he not have confidence in his jumper with proper form? I think they're talking about like the little push shot that he does, which is kind of like a little floater. That's kind of like a signature look for him. I think for me, the weird thing with IQ isn't that he's not looking for the jump shot, but it's more that he's not really looking to take layups. He doesn't really go to the basket and finish at the basket as much, especially comparing him to RJ. RJ's always going to the basket, and if he can't get there, he'll do a little push shot, right? But he's trying to get to the cup first and foremost. And if he takes contact, he's going to welcome it. He's going to go to the foul line. He's actually one of the best at the team, and probably the best on the team at drawing fouls. IQ, I think, actually beats his guys a decent amount, but a lot of times he'll let them off the hook by not going all the way to the basket and forcing the issue, but instead going for the little floater. Part of that is because he's more slight, but I also think mentality-wise, like, it's just the way he approaches versus the way RJ approaches it is very different. And I think the juxtaposition is pretty obvious each time you see them share the backcourt together, which is quite often. I think IQ, though, he has used a little bit more mid-range of late. I think I really noticed the first on the road trip. He was really using it as sort of an in-between move. And he's been able to drive, pivot off one foot, turn around, and then shoot the fadeaway. He even shot one of those, I think, late in the fourth quarter as well in this game. One thing to know from IQ, so we were, before the All-Star break, I think there was like an off day in between games. And that's where we were at Scotiabank to shoot essentially a huge camp day with Gillette. I mean, you'll see more details when we publish it. But we spent the entire day at the arena with Grady Dick, and there were a bunch of activations with kids coming into getting hosted by Gillette and Grady Dick playing with the kids, getting coaching. Like, it was actually a really heartwarming day, all things considered, right? Anyway, the reason I'm telling you this is because like 9 p.m. rolls around and we're still in the practice gym. So in the Scotiabank Arena, there's like the main court, but sometimes that's like, taken apart because it's like hockey in there or it's like a concert or whatever. So a lot of times the players practice in the third floor area. There's another gym up there. That's actually where the Raptors used to host all their practices back in the day before they built OVO, which was like, I think 2015 range. But that's just used to be where they hold all their practices. They still use that facility, evidently, because 9 p.m. rolled around and Jamal Shed pulled up with just a trainer and was just like, I'm just looking to get extra shots up. Now, he wasn't expecting there to be like, 40 kids running around and Grady Dick would be there. But he actually essentially waited for the event to be over, played around with the kids, was super nice. I shared a story earlier where he basically met a kid for the first time, heard that it was the kid's birthday the following day. He was turning 14, and IQ just like sent one of his handlers to go downstairs in the Raptors locker room and brought him up the game-worn Kobe's that he scored 40 in against the Warriors, and he just gifted that to the kid. Like, what an amazing birthday present for a 14-year-old. Like, that's just unbelievable. By the way, that 14-year-old somehow wore the same size shoes as IQ, size 13. So, anyway, that same night, then he waited for all the kids to be over, and then he went through his, like, full shooting workout, and I guess he was just getting extra shots up. But it was like 9:30, man, and he just came in, out of the blue just to get more shots up, waited for everyone to clear out, and then went through his routine. I just think that, like, that's just really impressive professionalism from a guy, Like, I think that IQ has had a bit of an embattled season with, like, being up and down and sort of being the ire of a lot of, critiques, and that's rightfully so. And you would expect a lot of people to come in and get extra shots up, and you expect a level of professionalism. But that actually is above and beyond, I think, what most people would do in that moment. I think it was a good sign of character from IQ to give those shoes away, because he really didn't have to do that, and that was a very special pair. And yeah, just coming in to work on the shots. And anyway, my point was, I was watching the workout, and the main focus for him was some of the in-between shots, where off the dribble, shooting mid-range, shooting off 1 foot, floaters, turnaround jumpers, and he's been drawing more fouls with that too. Like, it's been, I would say this, it's steadied off his game, because before it felt like he would shoot 6 threes, and if he couldn't make some of the shots, then all of a sudden his game would just completely tail off, and there was nothing else to offer. And he clearly is not just a 3-point specialist. Like, he's a guy who has in-between game. So I think it's like evened out his play, because now he doesn't have to live and die by the threes as much. So let's get another comment here. Oh, someone didn't like my comment about that. I'm sorry, man. What you guys want, man? I'm in America right now, man. ICE is in the back of my mind at all times. Clayton says the vlogs are so good. Yeah, if you guys didn't check out the vlogs, I think I definitely threw that last second at Jerome just to be like, yo, let's throw together some vlogs. Obviously, I saw how fun it was. I watched a lot of the ones from Raps Republic with S and Samson. Like, that was fun when they did it in the summer in training camp. The vlogs were always an idea that we wanted to do, but we always kind of run out of time just because we have so much stuff that we want to film. But I was like, let's just try to put together some, like, moments behind the scenes. Let's not even give context. Let's just kind of, take people into our lives a little bit. So they've been really fun. I know we dropped part 1 during All-Star Weekend, and then we just dropped part 2 as well. Second one, I don't know. It's just your usual goofiness, I would say. Like, running into people backstage like Magic Johnson and Chris Tucker, dapping up the entire Raptors coaching staff all of a sudden before the game, going to all their huddles and little in-between moments. I think it's just kind of fun, So I just genuinely enjoy showing you some of that stuff and showing your personalities. More vlog footage from All-Star. That was kind of the second part, right, was that. So I think that's kind of it. We don't have, trust me, we're already putting a lot on Jerome to put out as much content as we do. So that's it for All-Star content. I think people are trying to move on and focus on the second half of the season anyway. But I would appreciate if people watch those and give us feedback on if they like the vlog format or not. We got another comment here. Yak was solid, held up well when he got switched on the guards, freed up a lot of space with his screens, and he was mostly boxing out for defensive rebounds, letting teammates grab them. Look, I think those are all things that were absolutely true and they're fair to say. That's all the things you would expect from Yak. But I don't know. I also have seen Yak play at a much higher level, and I know when healthy, Jakob is a way bigger factor than just these basic things. And whatever, basic things, I'm not trying to, like, put them down. I just mean that, like, Yak is a lot better than what I saw tonight. Again, my overall impression was the game played around Jakob, not with Jakob. And he's certainly a very good player that should be on the focus of both the offense and the defense at certain points. Like, obviously, the Raptors like second best player last season, man. I know it's not saying a lot, but it was there. So, Shed has been scouted. He will adjust. I think that's a fair point. This is definitely the most that Jamal has played in an NBA context. Last year he played, but I don't think he was. Whatever. Raptors one of these assorted tanking teams, so nobody really cared about that. This is the time where he has to sort of adjust, and I think that's like. Look, the scouting report on him is pretty simple, right? He's looking to make the pass first and foremost. He's not a particularly good scorer. I think it's important that he has just enough scoring, like that little push shot where you got the little putback and the ball rolled around like 10 times before it dropped through. Like little floaters like that, knocking out open threes. I think that's kind of like the bare minimum. And if you can do that in addition to the stuff where taking care of the ball, that's fine. Like, that's actually good enough. For a second-year player, especially a second-round pick, I'm happy with that. The thing is, if he's not doing that, then Darko's got to know when to sort of like, okay, rein it back in and say like, okay, we just have to roll with some of the other guys. It's not like he doesn't have options. His roster is healthy right now, so you have Jamal, you have IQ there, you have RJ there. I know they're not perfect options either, but they are still better players than Jamal at the moment. So I'll say two more. Let's say two more before we pivot once again. What was it like meeting Draymond? Draymond was super cool, man. This is actually my second time meeting Draymond. I met him last year at Summer League as well. We were at the same clutch party, and Draymond was super nice. This time I got to actually spend more time talking to Draymond, which was sweet. Since I'm so content brained, I decided to burn my two magical wishes on meeting the genie, in this case on Trayce Jackson-Davis, and showing him his misplay against Pascal Siakam in the moment that helped clinch the championship for the Raptors in 2016, or 2019. So, I think that's, for me, that was just like, okay, I'm here as a servant of content on behalf of the Raptors. But I do think that, like, on a personal level, super nice, super personable, was able to chat with him. Saw him, like, really spending time with, like, tons of fans after the show. He was doing a live taping with Skip Bayless. I don't even know if the episode dropped yet, but it was actually pretty funny. It certainly had a lot of good moments. It dragged a little long, but, I'm certainly guilty of that, even on this pod. So, yeah, I don't know. I like Draymond a lot, man. I just think that, like, I know people saw the vlog, they saw the footage, and people were like, "Whoa, Will's, glazing Draymond or whatever." Yeah, man. Have you not heard the show? I love Draymond. He's actually one of my favorite players. I really respect him so much. So I think the goal would be, if we can eventually get Draymond on our show, would be incredible. And certainly is one of the most outspoken players in the NBA, and certainly one of the most interesting guys in the NBA. I know he's not for everybody, but for me, I respect the way he competes, man. I want all my athletes to play like that. All right, let's take one more last question. Do you think CMB can have a better first-round playoff showing than Scottie did as a rookie? Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, I know Scottie got injured with the ankle, and Joel Embiid, the horrible monster that he is, stepped on his ankle, and it just genuinely knocked him out for 3 games, and he was never the same. But that first game, I mean, I know the Raptors getting blown out, but Scottie, like, damn near had a triple-double in that one. I think only in 3 quarters, like, he was, nah, man, I don't think so. I think for CMB, like, the health, I mean, first off, he's just not as good as rookie Scottie was. In fact, actually, I think early in the season, I tried to ask Scottie, like, yo, he was like, yeah, like, I think I try to ask Scottie, because I think the Scottie report I've been getting is that, like, rookie CMB was going to be very similar to rookie Scottie, in the sense that, like, he was physically developed, he was very smart, he already knew how to play the game, and on the defensive end, he was always playable, right? So it's like, whatever offensively you do, we'll take it. So with that in mind, I actually asked Scottie, like, yo, do you see some similarities between yourself and CMB? And he kind of looked at me, he's like, that Westbrook, like, what you talking about, right? Like, it was kind of like that, because it was like, I mean, and I think he didn't want to say it, but it's like, obviously, he won Rookie of the Year, man. That's a different level. There are levels to this. I was wrong to even suggest some sort of equivalence, because he's not at that level. But I think CMB, similar to how Scottie was as a rookie, is going to be factoring a lot. And if I had to bet on it, I'd bet on CMB starting at least one playoff game for the Raptors in this upcoming playoffs. And that's partially because I don't feel particularly great about the way Jakob looks, especially with how much time off he's had. And part of that is also just my confidence in CMB. Because, I mean, if the Raptors play some certain matchups, I feel like he'd be massive against Cleveland, against Orlando. I know Orlando's like a difficult matchup to have, considering they're pretty low in the standings. But, like, yeah, like, all those teams he'd be huge against. And we're going to need him. He already plays a playoff-style game anyway, so... we're going to hand out the 3 stars, but they ain't got Rogers internet out here. Nah, man, I'm with Bell. You know that. In Toronto, I'm with Bell. You know what I mean? They got me for roaming. It's been great out here. Nah, man, I think this is some sort of American internet, but it is what it is. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to hand out 3 stars. We're going to show you the chain as well. But first, we want to bring you this wonderful message.
Man, you've been working really hard this season on the podcast. I think it's time you take a break.
I agree with you. I was looking at the calendar and I saw I got a bit of a week off, and I think I'm going to make a trip to one of my favorite cities in the world, Mexico City.
Oh, man, I love Mexico City, man. Well, one of the things to figure out, you got to book a spot there, man. You going to be using Airbnb?
Of course. Last time I was in CDMX, I did use Airbnb, and I found an amazing spot. It was in Roma, one of my favorite neighborhoods, and the best part about it, I still think about it to this day, it had this personal patio on the rooftop. You're able to wake up every morning to all this sunlight, which you do not get a lot of in the winter where we are, and I might just go right back to that same spot.
Yeah, now that you talk about it, I kind of want to go on a trip too, man. I think I banked about like 15 vacation days in April. Probably gonna go with some friends, maybe 6-7 of them, and man, I gotta find a spot that's spacious and in a good location.
Okay, well, first off, I hope I get that invite, okay? But while you're looking for that, have you checked out the guest favorites feature? You know, it shows you the most well-loved places by guests, the highest rated scores, and I think it's just a great way to find the spot that you're looking for, so that you can live like a local and outside of all the touristy areas.
Yo, that's a great call, man. All right, let's both take a break, book our trip, and use Airbnb.
All right, we're back. By the way, we were out in the Airbnb. Well, we're right now in LA. Super convenient. Me, Alex, Jerome. Nice, comfortable spot. It's great seeing the sun every single day. By the way, you know, I've been mentioning how much the winter has been hard to go through, and this 1 week away has been really nice. Even though it's like basically 5 degrees and raining in San Francisco, it's still better than -10, which is when I left Toronto. So I'm lamenting going back actually in 2 days, but you know, it is what it is. Anyway, let's get to the 3 stars, but before we can get there, let's show you the chain courtesy of intern Krem. Krem, put that chain on there, man. Let me see who got the chain. Brandon Ingram, of course he got the chain. Look at him looking all smooth. Yeah, Chicago Bulls locker room looking solid actually. As far as visiting locker rooms go, that's not bad. I don't know why they gave Brandon such a tiny locker room though. I mean, come on now, that thing that's not even a twin bed. That's like a single bed or something like that. Come on, man. We're talking about guys who are 6'10" in the NBA, 7 feet. Like, they need more room than that. I mean, come on now. They're making them fly economy essentially. So, but yeah, Brandon got the chain. Let's see the team pick as well. Oh, we got everybody in this team pick. My goodness, man. The Raptors getting healthy means that like we actually have to squeeze in, 18 guys on the roster, or I guess 17 right now because they cut Chris Paul. But there's Grady flexing, Jameson flexing. Of course, our guy Chucky Hepburn in the Nike Tech. I've been telling you guys, all this man does is wear Nike Techs. So Chucky Hepburn, get well soon, man. I know you went through knee surgery. Hope you're okay. Wear whatever you want, man. If you're injured, you're injured. You know what I mean? But bro loves team gear. Elijah doing a little flex. Jacoby, Jakob, Mamu, AJ in the back. It's just I don't know what's happening with RJ. No, was that RJ or is that Mobile? Who's getting their head squeezed by CMB there? Wait, I think they're missing a guy, right? Is that RJ or Mobile? Is Mobile with the 905 or something? In any case, nice to see the team all happy after wins. We're going to be seeing lots of these photos. Like I said, I mean, I don't know who's going to be out there doing this, but can somebody just compile every single Raptors post-game win photo into like a magazine or like some sort of like small booklet? Because I would buy that. I actually would buy that. So there you go. Let's wrap up with the 3 stars and the Gerald Henderson Award here. And again, apologies to everybody for the resolution and the internet connections. It is what it is, you know what I mean? Like we're rolling, I hope you guys can at least hear me. So 3 stars from this win over the Chicago Bulls. First star is going to Brandon Ingram, 31 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals. I think most importantly was just him taking control of the game. Raptors on the brink of choking again, which is an issue they got to solve, but they were on the brink of choking again. And Brandon Ingram comes in, gets the N1 set up to CMB after he draws a double team, and then he gets the mid-range pull-up. All of a sudden, that 5-0 run, huge in that moment. 36 minutes for Brandon, continuing to show why he was an all-star and why he's been one of the huge catalysts for the Raptors turnaround this season. I'm going to give the second star to Collin Murray-Boyles for playing through it once again. 11.6 rebounds, an assist, a steal, a block. Just thought was really impressive in terms of setting the tone defensively. Got the start ahead of Jakob. We may see that more often, but especially knocking down the 3 free throws, the and one. The 2 free throws after he got fouled hard at the basket on his injured thumb. What a tough kid, man. What a tough kid. So Collin's going to get the second star for me. And then third star, we got to Jacoby. You might even argue Jacoby was the second star, whatever. But regardless, he's one of the stars in my book. 14 points, 4 rebounds, 3 steals off the bench for Jakob Poeltl in 22 minutes. Got a rightful chance to close out the game. Ultimately, gets pulled towards the end, but yeah, man, Jakob was a dog, man, and that's one of the things you love about him is just his tenaciousness on defense. He's diving on the floor. He played it perfectly tonight. Got fouled in transition. I would love if he had made the extra pass to Jakob, who was trailing behind him for a dunk. A dunk is better than 2 free throws, but if you make the 2 free throws, it's all the same. And then knocking down some of the corner threes. I mean, it's just 2 of 5, but that's enough for any of my 3-and-D guys. So, nice win overall. They were able to avoid a collapse. Your Gerald Henderson award is going to go to Tre Jones for not the hugest stat line, but it's just impacting the game, kept a cool head, didn't turn the ball over, which was pretty impressive considering how much the Raptors were pressuring everybody. 12.6 assists off the bench. Kind of did what Jamal Shed's supposed to do for the Raptors, so salute to Tre Jones. But yeah, I mean, Raptors, they're clearly better than Chicago. They were able to beat them. They have better talent, but I think that they need a much higher level of consistency out of the group, and hopefully they're able to find that ahead of this playoff stretch. So I appreciate everyone for listening. Huge thanks to Krem and Jerome for helping behind the scenes. And next time I see you, well, actually, first off, Alex will be with you tomorrow. He's doing another show, this time with Cash. So check it out tomorrow. I think it's going to be before the Canada men's semifinals. So you'll get a chance to be able to watch both. By the way, if you didn't watch the quarterfinal against Chechnya, that was, I mean, hell of a game. But yeah, congrats to Mitch Marner, which I know for a lot of Leafs fans were kind of salty, but hey, man, come on, that goal was sick, bro. 1-on-3, then go backhand around the keeper. Unbelievable stuff. But yeah, hopefully Canada, the men are able to pull it out. Very sad for the women, but we'll be watching that. But of course, you can tap into Hello and Welcome tomorrow morning first and foremost, and then I'll be back with you on Sunday when the Raptors play their next game. I'll be back home in the usual setup. So I appreciate you guys. Thanks for sticking through this, and see you next time.